Today, I'm Laura Rogers, and we have Joelle Jobson here on audio.
Hello.
Hello. And last week, where was I? Well, last week, see, I'm going to Copenhagen this Friday, and I'm going to speak at a conference there called Intra-Team Event, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I realized just last week, Tuesday, that my passport was expiring like in a couple of weeks. So Atlanta is the only nearest place that has an actual passport agency, which lets you do the quick turnaround, like getting a passport really, expedited, like really, really expedited. So I drove to Atlanta, which is where Joelle lives, which is like 2 or 3 hour drive, and got my passport. It was a 2 hour turnaround. So I got my passport and I just had to wait there for 2 hours. So I had lunch with Joelle, did not have power hour, and then went and picked up my passport and then drove home. So it took like the whole day going to Atlanta. But yay, I have a passport. So hopefully if any of you live in Copenhagen, I'll see you at the conference. And also looking forward to the big SharePoint conference in Vegas in May. Hopefully you all will be there. But anyway, so today's topic is about PowerApps, this new functionality in here called components, and what it is and kind of some useful things that you can do with it and kind of digging around. Now, it's brand new. So it's so brand new that anyone, Microsoft's blog posts have just a couple of examples of ideas of things you can do with them, and other people's blog posts only like really just reference Microsoft's examples. So there isn't a ton out there as far as useful ways that you can use components. So what I'm going to do is talk about what they are and kind of show you around in there, and then talk about something that I thought of that because I'm trying to think about the apps that I do every day and apps that I do for customers, and things that components can help you with and be more efficient. You don't want to just use components just to use components. You want there to be a purpose behind it. So that was my goal, to find an actual purpose that will do something that will save you time. So everybody, this is the fun of doing a live show, is that we are live in our Slack channel, slack.iwmentor.com, or iwmentor.slack.com, sorry. And there is a form to fill out in the YouTube description if you've never joined the Slack channel before. Joelle, I think we actually have a couple in there. If you could, we have to manually invite you once you fill in a request.
Sure.
So the fun of having it live is that we have, first of all, you never know what technical difficulties we're going to have. And then we also get to have a conversation, get to say hello. We have our own little sort of community in there. And and we get to, ask questions and chime in. So if any of you who have tried out components, I'd love to hear any ideas or things that you came up with. And also you might want to play along and try them out too while I'm doing it. So let me go ahead and share my screen. And here we go. Okay. I have an app. Let me go ahead and put my computer on full screen here. And first of all, before I go into kind of the ideas that I was just kind of poking around in just this blank app, before I go into some of the ideas, I want to show you how to get to components. So what you're going to do is go to any app that you have and go to App Settings, and you have to turn on components. So you go to Advanced Settings here and scroll to the very bottom, and you have to put components to on. So that is, then once you do that, and you have to do that in each app, then you'll have a new little tab here called Components right here. And you'll have on the Insert tab, you'll have Components here. So then you will be able to toggle over here, and you see I've created one component here called Component Header. And I'll show you in a few minutes what I've done with that. All right, so you said that I turned yellow. I'm sorry. Okay, so I'll go ahead and create a new component and show you what it looks like. So click New Component, and what does it do? It takes me to this sort of like, it almost looks like another little screen. This sort of little, its own entity over here. So with my component, I can give it a name, just like anything. I'll just call it, I'll just use the prefix CMP test, and then give it a name. And then I have some properties for the component as a whole, and I have custom properties, and I can insert things into it. So I can insert a button here, and I can insert just a lot of the same, things that you would insert anywhere in PowerApps. Other controls, radio buttons, toggles, stuff like that. So I can insert a few things in here, and then I'll insert a rectangle. Rectangles are used a lot in just kind of, building some navigation or something. So, so I can put some things in it and name them just like in PowerApps, but the purpose of component is for it to be something that's reusable. So, I mean, it is a preview feature, so it does have quite a few limitations. So like off the top of my head, a few things that I thought of that I wanted to make my component do, you can't really do with them. And I'll kind of get into what you can do with it. So now I've created this component. I've dropped just a few random things in it, but what does it really do? So I'll go select my component over here and look at what its properties are. So first of all, I can give it a size. So I can give it like a, make it wider and make it like, see, now I've shrunk it down. Look at this white thing back here is my component. So I can give it a size, 800 width by 400 height. And then I'd kind of want to take all these things that I placed on here and drag them, into it. Of course, look at this. They're kind of floating out here. Okay, here we go. Oh, it's hard to even select that with it there, sitting out there in the middle of nowhere. There. Okay, so now I have this component, and in my component, I can do things that are relative to other properties, just like I can in PowerApps. So like this rectangle, I can make its width be the parent width, which is going to put it across the whole component. So you can do that with a lot of things in here and just make them relative to the component itself, wherever you place it. And that way your component the size could change, or you can resize it and things would just automatically stay relative to each other, just like anything in PowerApps. But we also have, we have properties for the whole component, like the size and the fill, but we also have custom properties. So my custom properties there are several different property types that I can have. So first of all, I can pick whether it's going to be input or output. So I'll just call this input test and give it a system name. And this is a test input. And then, so I say whether it's input, so I'm sending things into the component, and then I can say what type it is. Look at all these types of inputs I can have. Text, number, Boolean, date, time, screen, record, table, and records and tables are two different things in PowerApps. Image, we can send an image in there. We can do, put video or audio. We can send a color to it, or even do currency. So all these different sort of similar to like field types that you'd have in SharePoint or in PowerApps. So I have the ability to create. I'll just do a number one. This will be a number. This is a number. Okay. So I've created an input over here. So then you can see it over here listed under my custom properties on this property screen, and I can go back in and edit, and I can even edit it. I can even change what the data type is later. And I'll put, I'll do input number 2, input 2. Number input. I'm not really naming this like similar to what I named the other one, am I? So I'm really just trying to give a really simple example. So I'll give this a similar name, input number 1. Like that. Okay, so that is, oops, see, I accidentally made it text because that was the default. I got to make it a number so I can change it. And so this, I'm calling it input, I called it input test 1, and this one I called it input num. So I'm going to call this one input num 1. So they're similar. Okay, and then I can do an output. So I can just pick input or output, and I have all this same list of stuff that I can pick from. So I'll output a number. Output number. And then create that. And I didn't give it a pretty name. So you have like a pretty name, which is the one that displays over here. And then like the system name, outnum. So I can send 2 numbers into it and send a number out of it. So like I can, we'll just do some math or something. So I'll just say I want this to have a value of wait. I can give it a default. Okay, so my whole component, once I've created these custom properties now show here when I have my component selected here. So I have this selected. So in addition to fill, height, visible, like the normal ones, I also have input num1 and 2 as properties that I can go in here and actually set the value. So this actually put a default value of 100 here for both of my input numbers. So that's where you can go change the default values of them. And then let's see, I want to make this text just like this label here, show mp test dot input num1 plus, so you have to start when you want to reference these input numbers from inside, from in here, you have to use the name of your component dot whatever. So like this one is going to be, it says cmp test dot input num1 plus input num2, and then I could give it, so I could take these numbers in and then spit something out. So what I want to see, what I want you guys to think about and help me like kind of brainstorm in here while we're talking about these concepts is things that you would want to be reusable in a Power App that you do on multiple screens, or something that you change in one place and you want to change in multiple screens, or just some concept that you use in a lot of different Power Apps that you want to just be able to grab that and go and make it more portable. The first thing I think about is navigation. But the problem with navigation is you can't do like in the component. You can navigate, but let's see, there are just going to be a few limitations here. So you can't navigate from within the component, because the component, although I do have a screen called Screen Projects in my app, the component can't understand, like it doesn't know anything about like outside of itself. So you can't just create a button in here and make it navigate, because it doesn't have enough information. It doesn't know enough information about other things going on in Power Apps wherever you might place it. George says, so the component has its own scope. I guess I'm not sure what you mean by scope. It's got, I mean, it's its own sort of separate entity from everything else. It's like almost like a Power App inside of a Power App. Yeah, so you can't make it navigate like you would a normal button. You'd have to do something more complex. Can you pass the screen to the component? Jamie says, yes, it does know global variables. You can pass a screen, sort of, and you can, they are reusable between apps. So when I go to create a new component, I can actually import components and export them. So you'd create it, you'd export it, and then you put it as a file. It actually like spits it out as a file. I don't even know where it just put it just now. I think it, let me try that again. Yeah, I don't know what it just did. I think it's supposed to export it as a file, because then when you do import, it prompts you for a .sienna or .ms app file. So yeah. He says, can it store app colors? You can take in a color as an input or an output. Yeah, so you can have a color be an output. So let me see. So output number, my output property, I want to set, let me think. I have to figure out how to make it actually set the property of the output to like, because that's one of the big things that people are doing here, is they're sending like some sort of numbers into it and doing some sort of complex math functionality, and then outputting the result of that math that they're doing. Let's see. Can the hosting app see the components controls values? So George, it can see what you output. Yeah. So let's just go ahead and I'll just show you what I did instead of just kind of poking around in here, because I actually, did this and got a few things functioning. So instead of just kind of randomly poking around in here, I've kind of showed you some of the concepts so far, just so you understand now the concepts of, you've got a component, it has properties, it has a size and fill, and you create custom properties. But real quick, it also has advanced is where you get to the output properties. That's what I was missing. So advanced is where you can set a function on what you want the output properties to be. See, it says output here. And then notice that output properties aren't here. They're only over in advanced, which is a little, it is a preview. So let me just do that real quick. So I'm going to say cmp test dot input num1 plus cmp test dot input num2. So that's where it's going to output that math that it's doing. So now I've got my list of components here. I can go back to my screens. So let's just take a look at what I did, and then we'll spend time like just kind of poking around and maybe trying a few other things per your ideas. Like Anne just says, if the number's negative, make it red. Kurt says, does it work like SharePoint content type where you go back and change something in component? It'll be updated in all apps using the component. I don't think it would be updated in all apps, but it would be updated everywhere in the app that you're in, but then you'd have to export the file. So it's not going to talk across all of your apps. Yeah, that would be cool. But no, it's not going to, at least not yet. It's not going to, because think about it. Like you would want to go open an app and republish it if something had changed in it. I don't know if you'd want your apps to be dynamically changing like that without like reviewing them all or something. I mean, there is a way to do a reusable set of colors that I've demoed before, which is completely unrelated to components, but you could have just a SharePoint list where you list a bunch of like properties and color names, and then you just use the SharePoint list as a data source in just a lot of different Power Apps. And then you have the color properties everywhere in the Power App reference the values from that data source. And then that way you could change the data in the SharePoint list and change like a color from blue to red or whatever. And then all the Power Apps would just be using that live data, and then they would show the colors you changed. But that's unrelated to components. We could talk about that another day. All right, so I have this component that I created called header. So I was trying to do something fairly simple. Let me zoom in there. And I didn't even resize it. I just, when I created it, this was just the default size that it came. I didn't change, the little properties of it with the size. I just left it as 640 by 640. But what I did was I inserted a purple rectangle, and I called it label app header, and I made the width of it be parent.width. So wherever I place this, it's going to be like here. I place my component on this screen here. I just did insert and I picked my component, and then I dropped it on the screen. So I'll just add another screen real quick just to show you. So I'll do another blank screen, insert component CMP header, and then see it drops it on the screen, but and I'll show you what these buttons do in a minute, but I can just resize it. So since I made everything relative in my component, all the X's and the Y's and the widths and stuff, I made them all relative. That means that wherever I put this, when I insert it in my app, that makes it so that, like the width stretched out. It's just the width is equal to parent width. So let's go back to my component and we'll look at a few more things that I did in here. Sorry, my zooming keeps changing. Okay, so I inserted just a purple rectangle, and it's got a width of parent.width. And then I inserted this back button, cancel button, an add button, and a label. Okay, so here's the idea. The idea is that when I use this generic add button, I might have a screen that has a list of projects, and a screen that has a list of tasks, and the add button is something that can just be used on multiple screens and use a variable. So whatever I'm adding, like if I'm on a screen of projects, I can add a new project. If I'm on a screen of tasks, I can add a new tasks. So it's dynamic. So just wherever I am, it's just the same generic add button. So anything in this header, if I change it in the component, it will automatically change it on all the screens. So before I show you kind of what the logic is that I put in the button, I'll just show you, we'll just go change something in my component. So we'll just go change the label to, this zoom level is weird. Okay, so we'll just go change the color of it to green. So I changed the color of this header in the component, and then now when I go to my screens, it's green. Okay, big deal. I'm gonna do undo. But you could do that with with PowerApps already, because you could have just like a standard color reference, and you can have the color of your fill color of your header equal the color that you change in a central place, and then you change it and then it would change in all these places. So that's not that special that you can do that in a component, right? So exactly, George. He said, what's the on select value? That's the trick, is that I can't make it navigate. I can make it set a global variable though. So that's what I'm doing. So here in the component, I've got, and I'll just show you my add button. So my add button is setting a variable pop-up form. So I could have a list of stuff on a screen, and when I click the add button, a form appears, a form control. So the add button would make the form appear. So that's why I call it set var pop-up form to true. So it's just a variable that's a Boolean. And you can only use global variables in these. So, but then the visible property for my add button is it's going to toggle when I click the button. And then my cancel button, you can't preview a component, by the way. You have to go over to the screen to preview what it does. So my cancel button, let me just show you what it looks like when I preview it. See, it changes from the word add to the word cancel. So it changes from plus to a X. And I could even change like the X to red or something like that if I wanted to. So the logic is that when I click the add button, it's setting, when I click the button, it's setting a variable to true when I click add. And then when I click cancel, it's setting the variable to false. And then the visibility for ICO add is, it's really just ICO add needs to just show basically when pop-up form is false. So that it will only show when pop-up form is false. That's what the little exclamation mark is. And then ICO cancel visibility is only going to show when variable pop-up form is true. Because visibility property always just needs to be true or false. And this is a Boolean variable, so all I have to do is put the name of the variable here in visible. And then I have a label here. So for my label, it's also referencing this variable. It just says if var pop-up form equals true, then show the word cancel, otherwise show the word add. And in my components, I've got, as far as the text that's showing here, I made that be, let's see, I gave that a default of, yeah, it's just got a default of add basically. So let me go look at that again. Yeah. So the variable is, I'm going to give it a default of false, and then I have to click the button to change it. So I'll do that again. Screen projects. Okay, so all I'm doing right now is, like, you could see this big gray box is appearing, but that's all I've done so far. Okay, so the way this works is in my welcome screen, in my project screen, I've just inserted this component. So when you insert the component, I had actually inserted it on screen projects before I renamed the component. I inserted it here before I named it component header, and look, it gave it like this old name. So you really can, like, after you've inserted the component on your screens, it looks just like all the other controls on your screen. So I can just rename it if I want to, like CMP header on my project screen. Something like that. So it is a separate control, like separate copies of the component on all your screens that you add it to. But again, anything you change in that one place in the component will automatically show on all the screens. Okay, so George says, what's the on select value? So I just showed you that. So on select, it sets a variable. So did y'all understand that? I'm just setting a variable. Okay. Yes. Okay. All right, cool. Now what I'm doing is I need to, God, this Zoom is driving me nuts here. Did I create any custom properties in my component? Let's go see what my custom properties are in my component. Let's click on component header. And I did a few of these just that I was just playing around with. But my pop-up visibility, that's going to be the one that is going to be important. So shows or hides the pop-up form. I created a Boolean output. So this is what's going to, the data needs to go out of my component and communicate with the rest of the app when I'm on that screen. So that way, when I click on the thing in the component, it's sending that data, and I can do something with that data, because it's not, again, it's in its own little entity. It's not going to interact just like any old button. It's not going to be able to navigate and stuff like that. Lisa says, but if I rename it, will the renamed version pick up changes? Yeah, it is. It is picking up changes from the original. Because when I inserted it, that is the component that I inserted. So the name of it has nothing to do with, it's not going to affect the functionality. Okay, so this pop-up visibility shows or hides the pop-up form. So I have that functionality that I did that just stays in the component, that just toggles the add and the cancel, but I need to, I want it to do other stuff in my app, right? So when I'm in my screen, I need my screen and other stuff on my screen to know that I clicked this button. So what I did was, on this screen, I inserted a big gray rectangle, and I can like insert a form control or something like that. I'm not going to do that yet. I'm trying to keep it simple. I don't even have any data. I have no data sources in my app. I'm just showing you just bare bones what we can do with components. So I'm just making this big gray box appear. Now the big gray box is not part of my component. So that's the trick here, is that you saw the little logic that I'm doing that's just within the component, that's just toggling the add and the cancel, which that's easy. But you do need your component to talk to the rest of your app and tell it some information. So when so the visibility of this big gray rectangle is the key here. So the visibility has to go look at this pop-up visibility output from my component. So visible is true or false, right? And I created pop-up visibility as a Boolean output of my component. So therefore, this big gray box shows when I click the button. So the button is inside of the component and the big gray box is not. So that's how I'm sending that visibility information to this. Anything else on the screen is I have to reference it by saying the name of the component on that screen. So like the component, this is the same exact component that I inserted on all my screens, but it's just got a different name. But I have to reference this particular copy of it, the CMP header projects, and the pop-up visibility. So this is this copy of it. So this copy of it can also have its own defaults. So like button label, this was just a test I was doing. I could send it a default of test. So now what I'm looking at is I'm on my screen and I've selected my component like this on my screen. So like I said, these are different copies of the component, but the component has like screen name, I created that. Button label, I created that. Those are the outputs. Those are a couple of the outputs of the component. It's weird that the pop-up visibility isn't just showing there. Like, I don't know why. Maybe it's because it's a Boolean, but the pop-up visibility isn't showing there. But the pop-up, the component name, this control dot, whatever you called your custom property, that's how you have to reference it. So CMP header, and it is pop-up visibility. So see, I called it pop-up visibility here. It's outputting a Boolean, So this is setting a variable, and it is also, let's see, make sure I take this full circle. Oh, here it is. See, this is the missing link thing that I didn't show you yet. You're like, well, how is the component giving, like, how is it sending that information to outside of itself? So my pop-up visibility component custom property that I created as a Boolean, I'm sending it this variable. So that's it's a global variable in here called var pop-up form. But even though it's a global variable, it's not a global, like it's only global to the component. So other things in my app aren't going to know the value that I'm setting of a global variable inside of my component unless I do this. So my output, I had to specifically create an output custom property in the component, and it has the value of, you know, this variable that I'm toggling to true and false when I click the button. So again, pop-up visibility is where I'm getting that variable. And then when I go outside of my component to the screen, then I want to use that value, that true or false, in my visible. Then I'm referring to the name of my control, dot, and then see these are the three outputs that I created. So you do dot, and then that's how you reference that particular output. Yeah. So it's confusing because it's a global variable, but it's only global. It's not really global when you use it in a component. It is just in the component. Okay, so that's where that's kind of one very simple example with just a Boolean. So let's see, like now that I've done that, we've got 15 minutes left. So I showed you something that I do understand and kind of made that work. But now is the part of Power Hour where I kind of just fumble around and just try and figure out a few other things. So there is we'll go back into my component, and there is a type of custom property called a screen. So I created this one, I called it screen name, property, called it screen name, description, current screen name, made it input the screen. I'm going to call it input. So I would think that the component would have to be told the name of the screen. But I'm going to try and create an output one too, because the goal here is that in my component, let me move this out of the way, I only want this back button to show if I'm not on the welcome screen. Because in my app, I've got this welcome screen that's got a back button. Well, if I'm just starting out in the app, I'm just opening it for the first time, there's no purpose to have a back button. Maybe I just want everything else in this header to show except the back button. So I want to do something with the buttons in relation to what screen I'm on. So that was what I was trying to figure out how to accomplish, is how for my component to somehow know what screen I'm currently on. So I could just do, so I just typed current screen. So I created this current screen input, and I just typed screen welcome as the default value for current screen. So I could go here and go to my screen name input. Let's see, SCR projects. Oops. And let me go back over here. Let me see. Screen name input. Okay, there it is. Okay. SCR welcome. So you kind of have to tell it what screen I'm on. So let me see if I can do app dot screen. No, let me see. No, there is an app dot current screen thing. App dot active screen, that's what it is. But I don't know if I can. see if I can tell it that. Okay, screen name input is the thing that I created that wants to tell the component what screen I'm currently on, but screen name input needs to have a default of app.activeScreen. So I'll go here and I'll go to this component over here. I'll just do app.activeScreen. And then I wouldn't think I would have to type this in all these, but baby steps, right? Oops. Click on the component. Screen name input. App. And then another one. Okay, now let's see if I can do this. Okay, so the visibility on my back button. Oh, thanks for posting that. Yeah. Thanks for posting that link about Canvas components. I put that in my blog, wonderlaura.com. I have a button at the top in the navigation that says Power Hour Schedule, and I put a link as like extra reference information about this Power Hour. I put a link to that as well. Okay, so screen name input is what it's called. So this button, I only want that to be visible if screen name, no, CMP header dot screen name input is not SCR welcome. No, let me see. If CMP header dot screen name input equals SCR welcome, then yeah. Let's see if that works. See, this is where I kind of got stuck when we were trying to figure it out, but right before Power Hour, is that it doesn't let me type that. Let me just see if I put it in quotes. Yeah, it's just confused. It doesn't like it doesn't like a lot of this. It doesn't understand. It's like screen name input dot, but when you do dot on the screen name input, it doesn't have the actual name of the screen as one of the things you can, yeah, it doesn't have that. Isn't that weird? And so I did a collect just to kind of try this out. And I did a collect to collect the, this is what I was playing around with, why it took me so long to start Power Hour. Why is this all stuck here? Oh, I'm still on components. Let me go back to I'm trying to go to my screens. Okay, there we go. See, set var screen as app.activeScreen because I wanted to see what that stores in there. Because a lot of times you can set variables just to be able to go see what the heck it's got in there. So then when I go click this button and go look at that variable, var screen, it's like all this stuff, but it still doesn't have the name of the screen. Yeah, isn't that weird? So doesn't seem right. So let me try like collect app.activeScreen. Oh, no, see, it doesn't like that because, oh, wait, let me see. I got to give it a name of a collection. I'm trying to go too fast there. Yeah, it expects a record or table there. Wonder if I just collect app. No. It doesn't like that. So when I did the variable, it actually put it as a record, but then when I try to collect it, it doesn't understand that it is a record anyway. So screens are weird. We've definitely established that. So again, you would think that I would be able to show or hide this button according to what screen I'm on, and that would be using the screen name input, but it's very awkward and it's not as straightforward as you would think it would be. Yeah. Oh yeah, using collect, but I didn't use collect within a component just now, George. I was using a collect just so I could see if it would give me like what does a screen look like if you try and collect it, because when you put it in a variable it says that it's a record. So you'd think you'd be able to collect it. I know, it's so weird. Okay, so let's go back to that math thing that I was trying to do. So let's go, or I can do a couple things. I can go to my screen projects. This clicking is not, there we go. So I'm on my screen projects, on my screen, my navigating is not navigating. Screen welcome. God, it's like my click, it's very confused right now. I'm clicking around in my app and it's just like things are locked up. So I'm trying to go to this other screen and it's not going there. I must have broken all my screens by doing that. Okay, I'll go get rid of this. It's super confused. There. Okay. Now will it let me go to my other screens? Oh yeah, I seriously broke something. Let me just save it and close it and go back. I don't know. Yeah, I did. I just broke the whole thing. And again, remember, it's a preview. So, oh, yeah. Okay, I saved it and now it's able to go from screen to screen. Okay, so my, this would be a list of tasks and I can have like a, data source of some tasks. Let's see. Oh, wrong one. Okay, insert a form. Task form. I better give my form a background color. Yeah. There. Okay, so I've got just a quickie little form, and the form is going to be using that that visible thing. See? That pop-up visibility. So this is kind of taking it full circle. So I'll do my visible. Okay, so then when I go to this task screen and click add to add a task, oops, which is in the same spot as the X button up there. There. Then I need to make sure my, I got to make sure that I'm actually sending that information to, from the component to my app like I did on the other one. So I have, I went in here on screen projects and, oh yeah, see. So on this thing, I'm doing my output. Screen name input. CMP header projects dot pop up visibility. Oh, it's a different, yeah, it's a different name over here. It's called component 1_2. So that's what it is. So this one's going to be component 1_2. There we go. So I have to refer to the component that's on that screen. So that's what the confusion was. Yeah, so component 1_2. Let's see if that works. Oh, it's working on the other one. Oh, so let me show you one more thing. Back does work. Back does work in a component. So the actual functionality of the back button for it to do on select back, that does work because back doesn't reference any specific thing in your app. It just goes back from wherever you happen to be. So back is something that does function when I'm on my other screen. So like if I am on my welcome screen and I go to my project screen and I click back, it actually navigates. So that's the only just sort of easy way that you can navigate. You can use the back functionality. You just can't navigate to have a specific place that it goes. Maybe that screen input output thing is something we could possibly use for our navigate. But that's going to be, a little more complicated. So just remember that anything you want to do to communicate anything on your screen, in your component to anything on the screen, like a form or a gallery, you have to do that using inputs and outputs. And then it's going to be a little limited as far as like you can't use local variables, you can't use a data source can't be in a component, and a component can't be in a gallery. And so there are a lot of things like that are still very limited. But you all had a lot of great ideas. But some of the main stuff I wanted to do is around navigation, but it's just, if it's possible, it's a little not as straightforward as it maybe it could be. But it's coming along. Hopefully they'll do a lot more with it and they'll improve, and when it goes live, it's really, again, just in preview, then it'll be better. So hopefully you guys are getting ideas and trying and thinking of things that you can use these for. Let me go flip back over to my other. Can't really see my blue hair on the screen, can you? Anyway, yeah, hopefully you guys are thinking of some ideas of things that you need to be reusable. One of the examples they give in the Microsoft documentation is a little, like a number text box with a little up down arrow on it to make the number go up and down, and just basically it's got an input and an output, and that number can be output to your app to do something, and then that component can just be reused in lots of places. So usually in my apps, the navigation is the main thing that I reuse in lots of places, but I'm going to keep brainstorming. I really just kind of want to get in some basics with you all and show just some simple stuff. Is just the concept of taking that little true false and creating it and making it send the true false value from within the component to, something on the screen. That just understanding and getting your head around the concept and how it all just functions was really the main thing that I wanted to go over, and just kind of getting around in the interface. So was that a good little introduction? You think that maybe you guys will start getting some ideas and thinking about things that, let me know just here in our Slack channel, any ideas you come up with, and share them with the group over stuff that you could reuse using components. All right. I better wrap it up. Thanks everybody for coming, and sorry about the YouTube weirdness with the whole thing having to restart. Next week, I'm going to be speaking at a conference in Copenhagen. Joelle will be doing a session on that, the new mega menu that has come out in SharePoint, and how to do that, how to configure it, how it works. I'm so excited about that. I can't wait to watch that when I get back. And then she's going to go over like a revisit of site designs and that concept too. And Joelle, is there anything else you want to tell them?
Just Yeah, just gonna look over all change the look options, and then just revisit. We did site designs several months back, but just kind of revisiting and seeing what's changed. So that's about it.
Awesome. All right. Well, I'm teaching a workshop at an all day the workshop at this conference. It's like the whole morning is flow and the whole afternoon is PowerApps. And my daughter's having an E-day today, which means she's working from home for high school. So I'm going to get her to test my lab files for me. That's what I'm going to do today. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming. And Joelle will be doing it next week. And I'll see you all in a couple weeks. And have a good afternoon. Over and out.
Bye.